evening and welcome to our University of Lincoln Live Lounge. This evening it is all about personal statements and we are absolutely delighted that you are joining with us tonight. I am Emma and I'm your host for this evening, and what we're trying to do this evening is really just dispel all of those panics that you might be having if you're currently writing your personal statement. I'm going to be joined by an admissions tutor who is the senior Sarah, who's one of our senior lecturers in children and adult nursing. She's the admissions tutor for child nursing, and she's our schools and colleges liaison person in the health and social care school. So she's got a whole wealth of knowledge, and we'll meet Sarah in a moment. We're also going to meet Mitchell and Harriet, and Mitchell and Harriet are both students here at the university. So they are second and third year students, one doing history, one doing biomedical science. Both not too long ago, they were writing their personal statement just like you're writing now. And they are here to help you, to tell you how they wrote their personal statement, their top tips, where they went to look for help, and what they put into their personal statement. So we're going to have an introduction from both of those to help you do that. Just as a very quick introduction, the deadline is the 26th of January. So we are working towards the 26th of January for our deadline. Just a few sort of pointers for your application. Your UCAS application, you may have already started. Well done if you have. Please don't panic about your personal statement. Please ensure that your application is started to be filled in. You've got the right phone number on there, you've got the right email address, so that at any point when universities want to contact you, we can contact you, right up through to enrolment. What you need to remember is that it is a mandatory field of UCAS that we have to have a personal statement, and it's more important for some of the selective and competitive courses that we offer. That includes health and social care, which is why we're going to meet Sarah in a moment. And also, one of the key points is to tell me any questions, anything that you are worried about this evening. So hi, Amy, and we will start to pick up some of your questions literally in any second now. So we're going to say welcome to Sarah and bring Sarah into the studio. So hi, Sarah. I'm just going to add a couple of key points, and one of the top tips is that the personal statement is 47 lines worth of content and 4,000 characters. Now, there is no prizes for going over those 4,000 characters because UCAS will cut that straight off. So please don't worry about going over, because that is absolutely not the right thing to do. But my advice, and I'm going to ask Sarah what her advice would be, is if you're at 45 lines, that's fine, so long as your content is the right content. Do you agree, Sarah?
Absolutely. Do try and use as much of that provision as you can to get across what it is that we'd like to hear about. But again, as Emma says, don't worry, you don't have to use every single character. If you feel that you're content with what you've put and you like you say, get to 45 lines, that's fine. What I do worry about is when I see personal statements that are only half of that. And I don't think people always sell themselves enough. So do use as much of it as you possibly can. That's my advice, really.
I agree. So I'm just going to have a shout out. Thank you. We've already got some people that are asking questions, so that is brilliant. So hi to all of those that are watching now. Please tell us where you're watching us from. That would be really lovely. If you can tell us where in the country or even in the world you're watching, please say hi and tell us where you're watching. Sarah, we've got anybody that applies to you for child nursing, and we know that you've screened hundreds and hundreds of applications and personal statements over the years. What are your top tips, really?
Okay, I think what is really, really important, and this is not just for child nursing, I represent the School of Health and Social Care, so I'm also talking about all the courses to do with nursing, paramedic science, midwifery, health and social care. However, but I'm sure I'm representing my colleagues across the whole university. It's really, really important that you get across in your personal statement that you understand what it is that you're applying for. So in terms of for healthcare, it's really important that we can see you understand what you know a midwife does. You understand what you know a children's nurse actually does. And likewise, if you're wanting to do education, or you're wanting to do history, or you're wanting to do any of the courses we offer at the university, make sure that it's really clear you understand what it is that you're applying for and the complexities and challenges associated with those programs. So, for example, if you want to do law or you want to do education, what are going to be those complexities? And for some of you, it will be an appreciation that your course includes things like placements, or it includes a portfolio, or you've got to actually satisfy some professional bodies as well as the academic ones. So that's really important, particularly for nursing. I'm going back to nursing a little bit, I guess, but we need to see that you know what these NHS values are that actually constitute the Nursing and the Midwifery Council professional standards, because it's not just an academic program, it's a professional program as well. And I'm sure that is very replicable across quite a lot of our courses, Emma. I'm sure that's the case.
I think it is. Can we just stop there just a moment, Sarah, because we've got some fabulous questions. So thank you to Curtis watching in London. Hi, Curtis. We've got Bristol, we've got Kent, we've got Lincoln, we've got Tattershall, Nigeria. So we are a global audience this evening, which is absolutely fantastic. So we've got a question about interviews, and I think that's really a good question to sort of start with, really. Okay. I know we're jumping the gun a little bit with the questions, but we've had a question really from Mag Jean, and she's asking, would interviews be in person or online? Now, I know you can only speak from your sort of position at the moment, Sarah, but we are only talking from health and social care at Lincoln. But is it okay if you can sort of explain whether we are
absolutely
or online this year?
Yeah, definitely. Hello, Mag Jean. What we are doing this year is we're going to do our interviews for our healthcare programs online, and it will be in small groups of four students at a time. You'll all be asked questions in turn, but there's also a discussion element to the interview as well. So what you will be sent, certainly if you're applying for any of our healthcare programs, is you'll be sent an article at the same time as the invite to come to the interview. And as part of the interview, as a little group, we'll all be discussing that article, and you'll be asked to give your views about maybe the content of the article, maybe some of the more academic elements, the rigor perhaps, or the sort of effectiveness of the article, or even whether or not you think it's actually sort of fit for purpose. So we'll be sending you out an article. We'll be asking you to discuss that, and also we'll ask you a question in turn, and then we'll probably ask you all to make comment or add to anybody else's answers. So it will be quite a discussion sort of basis. That's for healthcare programs. There are other university courses that do interview across the universities, and some of them will have their own personal ways of doing that. So I know education interview, and they will probably have their own system, which you will be told about.
Absolutely, and the same with some of our journalism programs, and obviously people will have already applied for medicine, but we have a range, and certainly art and design programs as well. There'll be a portfolio. Ella has asked a question, does everybody get an interview? And I think that's a really relevant question, Ella, because I think that does vary, but I'll let Sarah pick up that from the health programs first.
Absolutely. Now, there are some very, very competitive health programs where we literally get thousands of applicants for a very small number of places. Now, children's nursing, paramedic science and midwifery are the University of Lincoln's most competitive programs. Each university will have their own most competitive programs. Some universities, it will be things like social work, or it might be things like uh, paramedic science, or it could be perhaps something like learning disability and social work combined degree. But all of these universities have competitive ones like we do. And what we tend to do at the University of Lincoln is we screen all of your UCAS applications using your personal statement mainly as the source of knowledge. And we invite to interview those students that score the highest scores. Now, what I mean by the highest scores is we have a very formal, very objective scoring system that we're looking for. And for competitive programs, we're looking for two things. One, that you ooze passion and understanding about what it is that you want to apply for. So if you want to be a midwife, for example, we need to see that you are passionate about women's rights, women's choices, empowering women, about being that one person that will make a difference to that woman throughout her pregnancy and delivery of a healthy infant. Certainly, if you want to be a child nurse, the same, mental health nurse, the same, adult nurse, paramedic, all of those courses are quite competitive. If you don't quite score enough points to be invited to interview for those competitive programs, you may well be offered the chance to come for an interview for one of our less competitive programs. Still just as important, still just as worthy, but they're less competitive because we have more places. And that's things like adult nursing and mental health nursing. We have much more place provision. We have a lot more ability to invite a lot more students to come along for an interview. So what we tend to do, if you don't score enough points for those competitive, we'll offer you an alternative. So most people do get offered an interview, but it might not be for your first choice. Um, I don't know if it's just worth mentioning at this point, though, with nursing, there is now a new curriculum that everyone across the country is trained to. And to be fair, there's an awful lot of very generic elements to nursing now. So everybody is trained to the same high standard and level, regardless of which field of practice you choose. And for that reason, once you qualify, you can work in any field of nursing. So as an adult nurse, you can still work in children's services. And as a
That's good
children's
to
nurse,
know.
you can work in mental health or adult. So there's lots of there's less. It's more blurring of the boundaries now. So I hope that answers the question, Ella. Sorry, it's a
Yeah.
long-winded answer.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you. We've got a couple of questions in here now as well about the structure of a personal statement. So I think it's really helpful. Eleanor, I'll pick up yours about mature students as well. But it is really about how do we go about, Olivia Moss has asked, how should the personal statement be structured? And I know, I'm sorry, I apologise for who else has asked a very similar sort of question. So it's what are we looking in that personal statement? I know advice when I go out to schools is sort of let's have 50% about the passion, just like you've said, Sarah, about the course where you've read around, so the subject that you're applying for, whatever that might be, and then 50% about you and your experiences, really. But what would you sort of say?
Work experience is so important, Olivia. The more competitive the programs, the more work experience you've got to demonstrate. So, for example, for our very competitive courses, which I've mentioned, and for the less competitive ones, we're looking that you've had some degree of work experience or transferable skills from allied experience. So, for example, if you want to apply for something like a paramedic or a children's nurse or an adult nurse, we want to see that you've got those transferable skills that you may have gleaned from part-time work that's not in a health sector, of course. It could be somewhere like working at McDonald's. We always get really excited when we see students that have got those sorts of experiences, because I've never been in a McDonald's in my life that isn't rushed off its feet, and the staff there are juggling so many different elements of their role. They're juggling showing people on the drive-through, the front counter, what's in the fryer, the money, the till, all those sorts of things. Likewise, if you work in any of the sort of hospitality type industries, they again, customer service, front-facing type roles, they're really, really useful. Your personal statement needs to show that you've got some transferable skills for pretty much every course that we offer. And really important that you're able to show that you have got examples where, for example, perhaps you've shown leadership skills or where you've shown problem solving skills. Again, it could be analytical skills if it's a more analytical business type course that you're applying for. Communication skills is really important, of course, if you want to do anything with people. So they're the sorts of things we want to see. So 50% of your personal statement needs to really reflect that, Olivia, that you absolutely have those types of transferable skills and work experience.
What if, obviously, in the last sort of 18 months, these year 13s and second years have struggled a little bit with even going to school, let alone getting some really relevant work experience, Sarah. So thank you for sort of sharing, because we know it's not been easy. What is there anything else that you would suggest if people, and if be as broad as possible with your sort of experience, even if it's not a health profession, but what else would you add in for those transferable skills?
It's been hard, and we really get that and absolutely understand. And it's been the hardest couple of years ever for students applying to university. The biggest problem is for those competitive courses, you will be up against people that have managed to get that work experience. So there needs to be some way that you can show that you've done your absolute utmost and best shot ever. Now, what a lot of students have done, instead of the actual going to the workplace work experience, they've managed to get online experience. So, for example, again, I hark back to my admissions role, which is children's nursing. What often students have done is they've joined in to online support where they've been able to help, for example, doing things like volunteering for like sort of rainbows or brownie guides. And what often those organizations did is they went online and they did Teams meetings for those types of activities for young children. And the students, of course, came into their element, because actually younger people, without being particularly sexist, ageist, or whatever, tend to be very, very good at IT. And so that's where their sort of abilities at being able to sort of blossom to actually show that they can help set up Teams meetings for those sorts of organizations. We have also students that have done quite a lot of e-learning instead of actually workplace experience. So they've been using the online sort of opportunities that are available to do quite a lot of quite in-depth sort of learning about a particular role. We've also had students that have been watching TED Talks and then writing a critique of the TED Talk and putting that in their personal statement. That's also really useful. It shows that you absolutely understand what it is that you're applying for. The TED Talks can be really interesting, and they're obviously free. You can sign up for TED Talks. We do get students that come to us with lots of babysitting experience, which again is a really, really valued type of thing to see on the application. Or if you've got family experience of caring for family members that might have additional needs or have young children in the family, or doing things like online or face-to-face first aid programs, or lots and lots of different things like that. So it's important you show something. Sorry, Emma.
No, sorry, I'm like jumping in. These are really, really great examples of how people can pull out some work experience. So thank you for that. I wouldn't have known that a TED Talk is something that you could use in your personal statement. Reading a book, I know you can pull out all sorts of things. But can I just ask, if they list that they've watched a TED Talk and talked about it, what are you looking for from that? Are you looking for sort of what they've learnt from that and how they can transfer those skills? Is that the added extra that you would look at in a personal statement?
It could well be things that, or maybe things that sort of challenge your thinking. You've listened to, for example, I did some teaching with some students quite recently, and we listened to a TED talk about a young woman that was living with schizophrenia. Now, if you're applying for a mental health course and you talk about in your personal statement that listening to that woman's story made you really challenge some of your own preconceptions or your own maybe prejudices even about those types of those different conditions, and how it's made you think very deeply or made you think quite passionately about wanting to support people to enable them to be able to live their lives completely free from prejudice or free from challenges with those types of mental health conditions. Anything like that would really make me feel very, very warm and um, sort of really that you absolutely understand what it is, and it shows and it demonstrates those values that we're looking for, that are NHS values, really, things like respecting people, things like showing compassion and being able to sort of really demonstrate some courage and ability to think out of the box and to care for people on a greater basis than just caring for their basic needs. So that's the sort of thing that you can use that type of thing in your personal statement to demonstrate.
Fabulous. I think at this point it's really key. And I know we've got a couple of questions about what you should put in your personal statement. A personal statement is exactly as it says, it's personal. So it's about you, isn't it? It's not about we're telling you what to put in a personal statement, else we wouldn't ask for it to even happen. It's personal to you, your experiences, things that you've learned. And one of the questions that Ella Howard has asked is, should we mention our extracurricular activities? Absolutely, Ella. So I'm going to answer that really quickly because I know there's lots of other questions, but yes, absolutely. And again, when you're talking about your extracurricular activities, if that is that you're a netballer or you're in a band or whatever that might be, don't just list that. Say what you've learnt while you've experienced that. If you've faced challenges and all of those things, then please mention that as your extracurricular. But simple answer, absolutely yes.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Ella Cox had asked a question about animal behaviour. Do they interview? No, we don't interview at Lincoln for that course, but please just remind yourself that that doesn't mean that other programs wouldn't. Okay. Ella Cox also asked a question right at the start, and so I'm going to very quickly go back to that. No, it wasn't Ella, it was Amy Elizabeth. So apologies, Amy. Is it better to get in earlier than waiting to your deadline? Now, Sarah, I know you have the answer to this. So Amy Elizabeth, this is your answer.
No, not at all. We do get some very early applications before UCAS closes. That sometimes tends to be people that have already got their qualifications, that maybe did their course, maybe a year or so ago, and then perhaps for whatever reason decided to take a year out before coming to university. So they've already got their qualifications. They don't need that additional help. It can be sometimes from students that have already thought about university for a lot longer, and they've already got their personal statements ready. If people do apply, and we do screen them, of course, and we do invite them for interview so that they are able to sort of start to have their future secured. But we certainly don't use up all the places. We don't allocate our places until we've interviewed a huge amount of people, and then we start to allocate the places on quite a conservative basis. So UCAS doesn't close until the 6th,
January.
27th, yeah, of January. So we're going to expect a huge amount more applications after then, and we tend to carry on screening and inviting to interview all the way through February and March to get through to everybody's opportunities to come for interviews, and of course, and then of course you can then start to make up your mind where you want to go when your offers start to come in. So no, we certainly. There's nothing to be gained from getting in early at all, really.
Brilliant.
So,
Thank you, Sarah. I've got 2 questions while you're still here, and then I'm just going to let the audience know that we have got Mitchell and Harriet that are then joining us, and then they're going to talk about what they put in their personal statements. So you're seeing it from a very different angle. So one question is, somebody has asked in the audience, if they have a disability, should they include that in their personal statement?
absolutely. It's about you. And that's what's really important. If you have something that you've lived with, or something that you've, a disability that maybe even that you've acquired throughout your life, do talk about the impact that that has on you. And it certainly won't limit your opportunity from coming into university. But I can say categorically, for any healthcare program, any offer that we make to you is subject to a successful occupational health clearance, because for any of our healthcare programs, you have to be fit for practice, and that's really important. But that doesn't mean that we don't have students with disabilities. We absolutely do, and of all types of
And
disabilities.
just to let the audience know that obviously this isn't just for healthcare programs. So I think what Sarah is saying, for every program, yes, absolutely, because that's definitely don't admit it, is what we're saying.
No, it's about you, and we want to know if you have, shown considerable resilience in your life by overcoming or living with any disability. So please do include it. It's about you. It's really important. And I saw another question earlier about any tips for more mature applicants. Again, if you've had a family, or you're a carer for loved ones, or you've had other careers, please do include it. We definitely want to hear from that, and that's really important, definitely. So thank you for that.
So just by the fact that you are a mature student, then please don't feel that this and your personal statement is just directed at 17, 18-year-olds. It definitely isn't. And I could almost put money on the fact that Sarah will have had and will have read today applications from mature students.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Healthcare, we don't have any upper age limit, and I don't believe any of our programs do. I might be wrong, Emma, but there's no upper age limit at all. We have nursing students well in their 50s and 60s, and that's absolutely fabulous, because they have so much to give to the NHS. Possibly for a shorter length of academic working life, but certainly so much to give, and we really value any applicants from any age. So perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for now, Sarah. I'm going to say take a breath, take a drink, and I'm going to say thank you to you, and thank you for your wealth of support. I'm not saying please don't go away, because we might need you back in for some more questions before we finish today. But I'm just going to say bye for now, and welcome in Harriet and Mitchell to the studio. Harriet and Mitchell, we've got Harriet and Mitchell both here. I'm going to invite Harriet to speak first. We've got a bit of echoing, unfortunately. I'm not sure who that is. So I'm going to ask Mitchell to speak first. So Mitchell, I'm going to say hi to you, and tell us which course you're on, where you came from in the country to come to Lincoln first.
So hi, I'm Mitchell. I'm a third year history student here at Lincoln. I'm originally from Norwich, so not too far away.
So tell us which school you attended in Norwich.
It was the Open Academy in Norwich. It used to be the old Heartsease High, but it changed a few years ago. So I think it's the Open Academy now, just the east side of Norwich. Fabulous.
And if anybody is watching from Norwich, then please say hi to Mitchell. Harriet, do you want to tell us where you are from, and also what course you're sort of studying?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Harriet. I am a second year biomedical science student. I'm from a small town just outside of Reading, so not close.
No, but that's good because you both made that journey to Lincoln, which is amazing. So what I'm going to ask both of you is there is a question from Jack Bradshaw. So I'm going to kick off with one of the questions so that we can keep the questions flowing and we can sort of offer our sort of advice this evening, because that's what we want to happen. Jack has asked, is wider reading about a course relevant in a personal statement? Now, I will sort of say a more of an official sort of line of yes, it absolutely is. Any wider reading, whatever that reading might be, is absolutely relevant. But I'm going to throw out to both Mitchell and Harriet, if you did any further, I'm guessing you both studied A-levels, and I'm guessing, Harriet, you will have studied some science A-levels, else you wouldn't be here. So tell us, did you do any sort of wider reading that made you think, right, this is why I wanted to do biomedical science? And the same with Mitchell, is that what you did? So just so we can help Jack with his sort of question and make it relevant, really.
Yeah, so I think wider reading is one of those things that is good for the personal statement, but also good for making sure that you know you want to do that course. So I know when I came to write my personal statement, I looked through sort of the modules that the course was offering, and then I went off and did wider reading around those modules so that I knew that that was the course I wanted to do. Then that made my personal statement so much easier to write, because I could say, I've gone away and looked at microbiology and I like this aspect of microbiology, which then just shows the university that I am actually interested and I'm prepared to go away and do it on my own, which when you're at university is going to be a big thing. So like you said before, personal statements are showcasing sort of your attributes. So you want to show that you can go away and research on your own. So I think, yeah, doing wider reading around a course kind of helps with that sort of stuff.
Mitchell, what was your sort of experience?
Yeah, again, I'd kind of second that really. Again, obviously history is quite diverse. You know, you can kind of go quite modern to quite ancient, obviously in some areas. Again, it's important. You know, I looked at the module list, what they offered, kind of time periods, especially. I knew kind of what I was interested in. Kind of had a look on the course page. Again, I did a lot of wider reading in sixth form. Obviously, not only for my course, but kind of my own benefit as well. Again, it's good to get a good spread. You know, all helps. All kind of, again, as Harry has mentioned, all kind of helps you kind of formulate an idea. Is it something you really want to do? Because obviously you're going to be doing it kind of for 3 years. So, you know, make sure something you're going to enjoy, you're going to get on with. So again, I just say really important. Again, show that in a personal statement. You know, it's what it's there for. Some courses don't interview, so that's kind of your chance to say, look, I've gone away, I've done this wider reading. I know you offer this and that. You know, I mean, I've done the wider reading for it. You know, I'm prepared to go out and do it, and kind of put the extra effort in.
Absolutely, thank you. So one of the other things that I want to ask you both is, when you were writing, go back sort of 3-4 years, when you were sort of in second year or year 13, when you started your personal statement, how on earth did you start, or how did you start to formulate your personal statement? So I don't mind who goes first. Let's go Mitchell first.
Yeah, again, it's quite a daunting process. I assume it is for a lot of people. Again, my sixth one was quite good. My head of sixth one was really good. We kind of sat down, had a big assembly on it, kind of how to write it, what to put in it. And again, I kind of went away, sat down, had a thought, what course do I want to do? Kind of had a look at the options. Again, think about it. It's good to think about your own experience. I sat down, for a good few hours, just thought about what have I done in kind of a history related field. Again, not necessarily history related, but things kind of associated, as Sarah's mentioned earlier, transferable skills, kind of previous jobs I've done, all kind of help formulate that and kind of sit down and made a plan, kind of work through it that way really initially.
And Harriet?
Yeah, so much like Mitchell said, I was literally terrified when I was starting to write my personal statement, and I actually took a year out before I started writing it. So I was out of college, and I applied independently of my college for uni. So I kind of just sat down and worked out where I wanted to go with it and what I was thinking about doing from that aspect. And then just started thinking about what I was good at, the things I'd done over the last year, the things I'd done at college, all of that sort of stuff, and sort of bullet pointed it to start off with. And then I gave it to actually my auntie who works in Southampton Hospital. And I said, does this look any good? And she said, yes, but kind of elaborate on this bit, that bit. Then I gave it to my mate and said, do you think this is right about me? And she said, yeah, but I would say this about you too and say that about you. So I think it's quite hard to kind of big yourself up in a personal statement. It's quite, I think a lot of people struggle to talk up about themselves. So I found giving it to someone else made it easier for me personally to say these good things that I had that the university wanted to hear.
Absolutely. I think that is the most relevant sort of bit of advice. It's so hard to sell yourself, no matter how confident you think the sixth former sat next to you actually is. They're probably not that confident about talking about themselves. And so I think the best bit about learning about yourself is to give it to a friend, isn't it? So I definitely think that is great advice. Mitchell, as well, you mentioned about help with your sixth form, and you had sort of your head of sixth form helped a lot. Did you work with sort of your peers as well? Did you sort of club together with any of your mates when you were sort of writing your personal statement at all?
Yeah, I know in my sixth form, my best friend from sixth form, he was applying for history as well. So we kind of sat down together. And again, we've done a lot of things when we were younger, kind of history related, or kind of we've been on kind of similar experiences. So we kind of sat down, compiled kind of what we'd done, you know, and kind of we kind of read each other's. Obviously, we're both doing the same, want to apply for the same course. So kind of use that as peers. I think it's good, especially if you've got someone who wants to do your own course. It's always good to sit down, especially, again, I found again, my sixth form teacher really good. Obviously, my A-level history teacher, I spoke to him and was like, what do you think? What did you kind of, you know, what would you look for? Things like that. I think that's really helpful. I was the first in my family to go to university. So my family, but again, it was still good for them to read it. They kind of had a read through to think it was true of me. Obviously, they remember stuff that I'd done when I was younger, or perhaps I hadn't, or experience I'd had. So that's all really helpful just to kind of compile it, really.
And I think that's really important. Sometimes it's nice to have somebody that actually doesn't know the subject. So actually they are just reading it blind, because my advice would be, and it will certainly be my final point to you, to ensure that you proofread several times, because you will, and I'm going to ask both of you if you did this, but you will probably move around paragraphs and your opening statement and things. Your opening statement probably won't be the first words that you write. Is that how you found when you formulated yours? I don't mind who answers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I wrote my personal statement probably about 3 or 4 times, and I'm now writing another personal statement for placements next year, and I've already got 2 drafts for that, and they've both been read, and I've read through them and realised that a lot of it was gibberish. It didn't make sense. So I went back, did it again, and each time you kind of find that it flows more nicely. It feels more true about you, and it's just easier to write it once you've done it a couple of times. You start to sort of know what you want to put next, and then I cut and paste paragraphs and move them around all the time, just to make sure that it kind of looks nice and flows nicely. So it takes time to do, but in the end, all of that time is worth it.
One of the questions I'm sure somebody has asked, and if they haven't, somebody has asked me this very relevantly, very, very recently. How long did you, on average, do you actually think you took writing your personal statement? Be really honest. How long do you think you took? Mitchell, how long do you think you took?
As in probably sort of accrued together, probably a good few weeks. I probably sat down for every good few weeks, probably if not a month. Kind of, I found it easier to kind of write a draft, put it away, kind of put it aside for a little while, kind of think on it, dwell on it, go back and read it. I found that was really helpful, as opposed to kind of writing everything, then trying to do it kind of constantly. I found, you know, I left myself, you know, maybe a few days a week, came back to it, then had another read over it, thought, oh, actually, I need to put this in, put that in. So probably a good few weeks, if not sort of month or so, probably all in all. But again, obviously, I left myself a good few days gap to kind of, you know, refresh myself, think, right, I wrote this properly. Have I added this in? Could I have added this in? Kind of give yourself that break. I found was always quite helpful.
And Harriet, I'm guessing very similar sort of process that Mitchell had from your experience, but in time, how long do you think you've spent?
I probably spent overall about 2 weeks on my personal statement, through and through, but luckily I had people around me quite close that I could just give it to and be like, can you read this? And they could say, like, here's what it is. But like Mitchell, as I was writing each draft, I left myself a day or so, or I slept on it so that I could read it in the mornings. Like everyone always says, it's best to go back with fresh eyes, because once you've read something sort of 3 times, you will just put the words in the place even if you've missed them out. And I'm awful for doing it. I still do it in my essays now. I still have to get someone else to read my essays before I submit them because I constantly miss words out. So yeah, it probably took me about 2 weeks once I gave myself the gaps in between to be able to actually read it back.
That's good to know. Dark Gamer has asked a question. If your A-levels are different to the course you're applying for, I'll start again. If your A-levels were different to the course you're applying for, are you at a disadvantage? I'm just going to sort of answer that very quickly to sort of say, no, you're not, if the course isn't requesting it is not part of their entry requirements. And number one with your application when you're choosing is to check the entry requirements. Please check the entry requirements. I'm going to ask in a moment to Mitchell and Harriet which A-levels they took. And just to give you a bit of an example, but you couldn't, for example, apply for biomedical science if you were doing history, art and graphic design, for example, because there is no science in there. But there are courses where we don't specify which A-level that you need to do. So please, please, please check your entry requirements before you submit your application, because it will just eliminate any rejections. Harriet, what A-levels did you do? And obviously we know you're now studying biomedical science.
Yeah, so I took biology, geography, and then I did business. So business was a little bit out there. I did take chemistry in my first year, but I decided it wasn't for me. But that didn't really matter. That didn't matter in the end. But my course asked for 2 science subjects, and luckily they accepted geography as a science and biology as a science. So I had my 2 science subjects, and then I had my third one, which was just business as another one, just there.
Fab. And Mitchell, which A-levels did you take?
I did history, psychology and English literature. So quite a sort of a all artsy range. Again, that's especially kind of a course, again, it's quite helpful, again, if you've got that kind of A-level in your course, I'd say, especially for history. I found that I'd had background knowledge of history, haven't done it at A-level GCSE. It's always helpful, but again, I wouldn't say you're not at a disadvantage for some of the courses.
And did you find, because we've got Moonlit, the Moonlit Wolf, who is asking a question. You've asked lots of questions, obviously wanting to come do history. So I'm just going to ask you, Mitchell, very quickly before I sort of touch on his questions. Did you find that you have found that there are any students studying history that didn't do A-level history?
Yeah, there's a few people I know that didn't do a history. People kind of, people do things like philosophy, other things. But again, with history, it's kind of demonstrating that you kind of the skills you've learned from those A-levels you can apply to history. Obviously, because there'll be parts of the course I've done modules that I've never done anything on before in history. I've never touched on at all. A-level GCSEs obviously can be quite different from sort of degree level history. So again, lots of history I'd never touched on, and people had kind of done various things, or people hadn't at all, and kind of you all come into it at the same level. So not necessarily, no.
So what I'm going to sort of say to Moonlit Wolf is the portfolio of A-levels that you're doing would be absolutely fine for history. But my advice to everybody watching is that you go onto the university website, check on the course pages and check the relevant entry requirements before you sort of progress with your application, just so that you are absolutely sure. We've got a whole load of other questions, and I'm just going to throw this one out from Hellcat to you both to sort of say, can you give an example of bad or boring elements within a personal statement, as in, e.g. cliche phrases? Now, I'm absolutely certain that neither of you would have had any cliche phrases in your opening paragraph, but can you give any examples, or do you know of any of your friends when you were at school did put some really cringeworthy sort of phrases in their statements? And if you didn't, that's fine, but I'll just go to Mitchell first. Do you know of anything, or can you think of anything that you would not put in your personal statement?
I think I kind of fell into the trap, I must admit, a few times initially. It's kind of, a lot of people write, you know, since I was a child, I've been really, you know, it's those kind of things. It's hard. I know it can be hard to kind of phrase things in a certain way, but it's kind of avoiding those general kind of almost a bit too, it's a hard kind of balance. It's trying to sell yourself, but don't kind of drop those sort of awkward sort of phrases in, kind of try to find a way to reword those better. But I know a lot of people kind of, you know, since I was a child, or I've been passionate since a very young age. Those kind of things I find it's kind of try and rejig those a little bit. Again, it can be quite hard. I fell into that trap quite a lot. But again, it's just kind of thinking about it, rejigging it. So.
Fab. And Harriet, any ideas from you, or anything that you can think of?
Yeah, so originally when I was applying for uni, I actually applied for bioveterinary science, and that's what I did in my first year, and that's swapped over to biomedical science. So in my first draft of my statement, I fell into the trap of saying, I love animals. And I read it back and I was like, I can't believe I've said that. Like, of course I do, for applying for this degree, like it's kind of a given. So I'd say if you were going into anything like ecology and conservation, zoology, bioveterinary, any of those ones, they know you love animals. Just talk about why you want to go into that rather than the fact that you love animals.
Absolutely, really good advice. And yes, Hellcat, I am laughing at your profile picture, as I'm sure both Mitchell and Harriet are as well. But thank you so much for asking the question, because it is really important to sort of say that. One of the other things that I think I would sort of add in there is, please don't include humour in a personal statement as much as you can. The problem is humour is very personal, and everybody has a very different sense of humour, so you could get it wrong. So make sure that everything is factual. Everything that you do include, you would be happy to talk about in interview or expand further. That's not, as we've said, not every course interviews, but actually, you know, you might be called for interview. So it's worth noting that you don't put anything down there that you can't expand to interview. Also, I'm going to ask you both, is there anything that when you first started, is there any resources online that you did, and you can be totally honest, because, you know, you obviously did some very good personal statements, but did you use any online resources when you were constructing your personal statement? Harriet, I'll go to you first this time.
I actually just typed in personal statement for bioveterinary science, and so many came up, and I read through probably 5, 6, 7 of them, just quickly kind of scanned through them and kind of looked at what I thought, oh, that makes them sound interesting. And then I thought about the things in my life that may have been similar. Obviously, don't copy it. Plagiarism is a massive thing at university, and if you plagiarize your personal statement, it'll be picked up on. So definitely don't do that, but have a look at other people's personal statements as sort of a benchmark for what could be good, because then you can see the really, really good ones and the really, really bad ones and kind of know what it should sound like by the end of it.
Fab. And Mitchell?
Yeah, again, as Harriet said, I did the same. I kind of Googled personal for history, kind of look through how they're kind of worded, how they're phrased, again, what kind of things people include, what they talk about. Again, obviously don't copy those, but again, I thought to myself, oh, I've done something kind of similar to that, or I've done those kind of things. Again, once I sat down and I thought, there's probably a lot of stuff you've done actually related to your course, kind of thing I found anyway, that kind of you can write and include. So yeah, it's probably worth having a sort of look around.
Fabulous. Thank you both so much. I think one of the other key things is, as Harriet has just sort of talked about, plagiarism is a big no-no at university, but it's also a massive no-no at UCAS. So when you submit your application, any copy and pasting, as attractive as it might seem, will be flagged by the software that UCAS have, and there is a possibility that your application will be rejected, which nobody wants, because if you are like these two, you will have spent quite some time getting to that final draft. So please, please, please don't do it. I'm going to draw this session sort of to an end now. There are lots of questions that I don't think I've managed to get to, so I do apologise to that. Please email us at marketingenquiries@lincoln.ac.uk, and we will pick up any of those answers for you over the next day or so. Also, we want you to ensure that you do use any of the resources out there. So go on to UCAS, have a look. There's lots of little short videos about top tips and things to add into your personal statement, and also the Uni Guide personal statement builder. You can just literally build your personal statement up. So when you're first starting and you're really struggling, as both Harriet and Mitchell did, just seek some of that online advice, but don't pinch it, but seek that online sort of, those resources are there for helping you. And finally, it is about the next steps. We want you to have the best personal statement that you can possibly have. So if you need help from us, then please contact us on educationliaison@lincoln.ac.uk, and we will be able to, our team of experts will be able to help if you are really struggling with anything and you just want a little bit more of a tip to help you with that. Go on to our social media, join our social media channels. There's lots of advice on our website, lots of advice on our personal statements and on our social media channels. And if you have enjoyed and you have got something out of this evening, then please join us at the same time next week. So next Wednesday, no, in fact, I'm lying. It will be Thursday, the 9th of December, at 5 o'clock, and we're going to have a session on budgeting. So all about student finance, dispelling some of the myths about student finance, and hopefully these wonderful people, Harriet and Mitchell, might be able to help me again to talk about their budgeting, so their student budgeting as well. But I'm going to finish there and invite you all to join us at our University Open Day, which is next Wednesday, the 8th of December. And all you need to do is go on to lincoln.ac.uk and book your place and come and join us next Wednesday in person to physically see us there. We are intending to have a desk there for personal statement check-in. So come along to our open day and come and bring your personal statement, and we'll give you some one-to-one advice right there. So we really thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Harriet. Thank you, Mitchell. And thank you to Sarah as well for her wealth of knowledge and advice. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you very much and good night.